Forever Skies is the best combination of Raft and Subnautica. Hi friends, and welcome to Forever Skies, a brand new early access survival game you should try if you enjoyed the island-to-island gameplay and base building aspects of Raft and the exploration aspects of Subnautica. This game is significantly darker than Raft was, with a few more horror or suspense undertones in the story, but it's the next must-try game for fans of the survival crafting genre. Build up your big airship or blimp as you explore a vast, desolate world full of secrets to uncover. If you enjoyed my overview, consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel. It would be much appreciated. But without further ado, here's everything we know about Forever Skies. Forever Skies is a survival crafting game, meaning that one of your primary objectives is staying alive. There are 4 metrics the game uses to track your survival: health, energy, hunger, and thirst. Health is pretty self-explanatory. It's how many hit points you have before you perish. This can be increased by using first aid kits, eating or drinking safe foods, and resting, but can also be lowered by taking physical damage or not maintaining those other stats. It functions the same way as health does in all of your other favorite video games. For energy, resting is the primary means of managing your energy bar, and you can do that by taking a nap on a bed that you'll have access to after the first location you land on. Sleeping once every few days is enough to manage that bar, or you can find foods like an energy tonic at some locations that also restore your thirst. Thirst obviously involves drinking liquids, but you do not want to consume the dirty standing water that you can find at various locations. Instead, you'll want to purify that dirty water into clean water using the handy-dandy water purifier. Then that clean water in turn can be used to boil all sorts of really tasty food. When I say really tasty, I'm being pretty sarcastic because your main food source is fishing whatever floats past your little lure in the layer of dust below you. That means you'll be eating boiled dust moth, boiled fat dust moth, boiled glowing dust moth, or the lovely boiled dust lettuce. If you get lucky, some islands have a few different crops you can boil too, like some melons or lobster chilies, but those are by far your most appetizing options. To be fair, there are planned changes coming to the cooking progression, so maybe roasted dust moth will be an option in the future. No matter what you decide to consume to sustain your astronaut body, though, you never want to eat anything raw. That's because eating raw food from a contaminated planet is a great way to give yourself lots of fun diseases. Diseases will affect one or more of those 4 survival stats we talked about earlier, along with some other debuffs, although this system has a planned overhaul coming in the future, so I won't go into more detail for the time being. Diseases are expected to majorly impact the gameplay in the future, though. The other central aspect of a survival crafting game is, of course, the crafting aspect, which you'll need the research station for. This works similarly to the beloved research table in Raft, where some blueprints are available from the start and others have to be unlocked by progressing the game. In the case of Forever Skies, the method of progressing to unlock stuff is by scanning an object, which will either give you information on what you scanned, tell you how to make it, or both, much like scanning in Subnautica. Once an item has been sufficiently unlocked, it will be under an appropriate tab of the research station, awaiting all of its required materials to process. Materials placed in the research station require multiples and will not be carried over between recipes, so be warned that if a recipe asks for something like plastic scrap, another recipe will still require the full amount of plastic scrap needed to research that recipe as well. Once you've researched an object or machine, you'll then need to create it in its respective crafting station. The vast majority of stuff that's useful for your survival can be created in the fabricator. Simply thumb through the tabs at the top to find what you want to create, making sure that you have all of the necessary materials in your inventory. Then give it a click, wait a few moments to give it a chance to look like a reverse 3D printer, and voila, your item is complete. You can even use the fabricator to make other kinds of crafting stations, like the ship workbench and the upgrade station, which delve further into the crafting parts of the game by allowing you to make useful things like storage shelves or an automatic deck extractor. That device in particular is pretty great because metal and synthetics make up the bulk of the baseline crafting materials, and they continuously float past your airship, kind of like the flotsam in Raft. The deck extractor is like your hook, and having a battery-powered version is pretty darn nice, but they do burn through a lot of power, so you're going to need a steady supply of solid-state batteries. To get those solid-state batteries, you're going to need to explore the vast sky around you. If you've played Raft, the core idea is pretty similar. There are a set series of islands that house the resources you need, and you rotate between islands to find and collect new stuff. Unlike Raft, there is a way to mark which islands you have already visited by removing the battery from its beacon, and you can revisit an island if you so choose, but unless you forget to take the battery, there's no questioning where you've already been. These islands also come in a few forms that do force some sort of game progression to explore. You start your journey by visiting these red beacons, which are, kind of ironically, the radio towers. These islands require the least lift and power to get to, but they come in 5 distinct variations, from a simple communication point, overgrown towers, and even small towns. Not only do the different island styles give off distinct exploration vibes, they also contain unique resources and blueprints that you can unlock as you go, like the excess vegetation on overgrown towers, or the vast amounts of helium you can find on wind farms, which are the other major category of islands currently in the game. These only have 4 variants: the standard wind tower, the crash site, the command center, and the high point. But similarly to the radio tower, each variant has special opportunities not afforded by any other island variant. Wind farms in general require more turbines to land on, and even then, high point towers require certain airship modifications to reach one of the useful machines I referenced earlier. If you get your hands on a radar, you can tell almost all of the variants apart at a moment's notice and continue to explore new locations without the hazard of getting lost or revisiting an already looted island multiple times, which is a fantastic quality of life feature. Of course, there are also two lore-inspired island variants, which are the Underdust Elevators and the Greenhouse Towers. Underdust Elevators are definitely the most gameplay engaging style of island currently in the game, as the Underdust functions kind of like being underwater in either Subnautica or Raft, where you've got an oxygen meter that you need to constantly monitor. This is where a lot of the current threats to your health come in. Between the danger of suffocating and a few other things running around, the Underdust is functionally the surface of the world before the dust began to settle, meaning that it looks like abandoned apartments that were overtaken by mysterious vegetation. It's all pretty eerie and really well done from an environmental storytelling perspective. This place also comes with puzzles to solve and even some parkour if you're into that. Greenhouses are filled with lush, or as much lushness as you can expect in the apocalypse, greenery, useful plants, and food to keep you satiated on your journey, along with a few minor jump scares along the way. This is a good place to unlock a lot of mid-tier crafting resources and recipes, along with plenty of fun decoration items like gnomes or stone bunnies. All islands have a chance to spawn with a number of decoration items that you can bring back home with you to spruce up your airship, and you can also find data cards randomly scattered for a few extra decoration variants as well. As you continue to unlock these new and exciting decorations, you're going to need a place to put them, and that's where your airship gets to shine. You've got this big blimp sitting on top of your ship, which determines how much weight your ship can lift. You can increase that number by making the balloon longer, or by adding turbines, or by even adding an entire extra balloon. This plays along with determining how much of pretty much anything you can afford to place on your ship, as all of the machines, decoration objects, and everything else have an associated weight alongside them. So your lift is a passive resource that you need to manage as you go, and you can't clutter every little corner unless you've got the balloon to carry it. This is kind of like the way that you need to manage structure strength in Subnautica, where you can't let your desire for aesthetic exceed what your build is capable of. But once you've figured out what ratios of decorations to machines are right for you, you can make your ship look even nicer. There are several distinct paint swatches that you can apply to a unique surface in your ship, making customized color coding very simple. Combine those painted surfaces with a number of wall textures, floor and ceiling variations, of course alongside your many posters that you've insisted on hoarding, and you can build up a lovely airship that's fully customized to your preferences. All of the functional decoration objects like lights, shelves, and tables also come in a few variations that you can use to suit your custom aesthetic. At that point, all you need is to slap some engines and turbines on the outside, and your floating citadel is good to go. Better yet, there are plenty more build features planned for the future, including better ways to maintain your ship than by slapping it with a piece of bubblegum. And for those of you with friends, there's one more big question remaining. Will there be multiplayer? Yes. The devs are currently planning for a 4-person multiplayer experience, which will likely come in the form of one captain with 3 crewmates. They are planning on testing her out with multiple airships, but said that would be difficult to implement. Regardless, know that playing with your buddies will be possible in the somewhat near future. Additional feature updates include more building options, gardening on your airship, and combat changes, along with pretty much just more of everything else from collectibles to creatures and beyond. We can expect to see a lot of new gameplay features added as development continues, and they are building up a solid foundation that already provides hours of content. Personally, I'm always really intrigued by how the stories in this kind of game evolve, so here's what we know of the story so far. Everything beyond this point is spoilers, so consider yourself warned. As I mentioned at the start of the video, this game is quite a bit darker than Raft or Subnautica, and that includes stumbling across the remains of other humans that came before you. The entire premise of Forever Skies centers around revisiting Earth more than 400 years in the future after a deadly virus has wiped out much of the planet, and the surface is coated in a thick layer of heavily polluted dust. After the death of the planet, what remains of the human race fled into orbit, not realizing that they had brought a rapidly evolving disease with them that threatens the rest of humanity. You, the protagonist of this story, are responding to a distress signal, but your pod crashed into an island, meaning that you have to figure out what chaos happened around you and build up a ship to survive, maybe even escape, and potentially save the human race in the process. At this first way station, it appears that something has gone horribly wrong with one of the expedition's members named Noah, who apparently went insane with a certain idea on how to save the world. He was locked in a cell by his crewmates, but managed to escape, taking the team's airship with them and leaving the rest stranded around their rudimentary lab, which is where you will find their unfortunate remains. From here, it's up to you to restore the airship and follow Noah's footsteps, or rather, his scribbles on the wall as he leads you under the layer of dust, where he is convinced the cure for humanity can be found. I anticipate our journey will follow Noah deeper into the Underdust, bringing plenty of unsettling adventures and new experiences alongside it. There are also hints of the world changing as you progress, so we may not always be stuck above this layer of dust decay as we get to explore new uncharted territories. Forever Skies is still in early access, so nothing is set in stone yet, but the devs have big plans to make their game one of the next big survival titles. I highly recommend checking it out and giving it a try, as the current version already has a good 20 plus hours of playtime. Anyways, I think that's everything for me for now. I hope you enjoyed. Please consider leaving a like if you did, and consider subscribing if you haven't already. It really helps me out. I hope to see you all again soon, but until then, have a great day.